Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we'll take a look at some new Am I the A-hole stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one posted by user Animalime. Titled, AITA for not paying for my friend's car repair even though I was behind the wheel when the incident occurred. Alright, this actually happened many years ago, but I still think about it from time to time and would like to know if I was the a-hole. I'll post the ages at the time of the event. Me, 21 male, and my friend A, 18 female, were hanging out with a couple others at her mum's house while a blizzard was going on. At one point we decided we were going to head to another friend's house. In Wisconsin, driving in snow is literally our lives. So we went to leave, but A's car was stuck in the snow. I was sort of the driver of the group as I was the oldest, taught her how to drive, and was typically the one driving everyone around. I asked if I could get behind the wheel and try to maneuver the car out of the snow for her as she wasn't the greatest driver. I'd like to note here that she already had collided with a guard railing prior to this, so the car was pretty beat, also an older car. I got behind the wheel and basically rocked the car slowly from forward to reverse until I was able to get enough momentum to finally get it unstuck. She thanked me, but as we were going to leave noticed a fluid leak left behind in the snow. Turns out her coolant line disconnected. I felt bad, but kind of figured something was bound to go wrong with the car. As I mentioned, she never brought it in to get fixed after her railing collision, and it was already an older car. She turned to me and said, "Don't worry, you can just pay me for it on your next paycheck." I was a bit taken aback and told her I didn't feel right to pay for her car repairs when I literally just slowly gassed and rocked the car out of the snow. I didn't want to bring up how she never even brought her car in after it was in an accident, and this was most likely an incident waiting to happen. But one of our other friends then chimed in that they felt I should pay for the car repairs as well. I never did pay her for it, and she ended up totaling it shortly after the incident anyway, so we both kind of moved past it. We would later go on to be roommates for years, but I still wonder from time to time if I was the a-hole for not paying. AITA? User comment, not the a-hole. The more likely scenario is that the line was already disconnected and you just discovered the leak after you moved the car. User comment, not the a-hole. I thought this was going to be an accident post. You helped her get the car out of the snow. She is responsible for the upkeep. User comment, not the a-hole. That definitely happened as a combination. You helped her out of a hard situation, and it sounds as if the car would have been much worse off if she had tried to move it. I honestly can't believe that reaction. She should have been thankful you could help. Next one posted by user CriticalFlow1067. Titled, AITA for telling my neighbor to not yell at my clients. I have my own business that I run out of my home. I am still seeing clients during this time. Everyone wears masks, maintains 6 feet, I sanitize, etc. Of course. Because of wonky numbering systems and houses looking very similar, people confuse my house for my neighbors. I always try to give a descriptive feature. I have an unusual lawn ornament, but that doesn't always work. Once, like a year ago, a client parked in my neighbor's driveway. That was bad, but it was an honest mistake. I was telling them to move when my neighbor comes running out of their house, screaming at my client to move their vehicle. I'm not exaggerating, she was screaming and very angry. I told her next time to talk to me calmly and I'll make sure they move their vehicle. No one before or since has parked in front of her house, associated with me. However, last night, it happened. Now, they parked in front of her house, but not blocking the driveway and not in the driveway. Legally, they had every right to park there, as my neighbor doesn't own the street. However, as my client is getting out of the house, texting me to say they were there, my neighbor comes running out of her house, once again screaming at this person that she had guests coming and they had to move now. Again, she is screaming at this total stranger. My client actually got in the car and drove away before I could intervene. They texted me later saying that they would find business elsewhere, despite me apologizing and explaining. Because this is the second time this has happened, I called my neighbor. I said, I understand that it can be stressful, but she cannot just yell at my clients, and yes, she knows what I do, so she knows these are my clients. I said she can either call me or nicely tell them to please move. I let her know she made me lose a client and she was flippant about it. I asked if this has happened more than I realize and she admitted, no. She just said she doesn't want anyone near her property that shouldn't be. She then told me that I should put up signs or something in my yard, which she knows aren't allowed by the HOA. I told her that it takes 2 seconds to just be kind to a person. She told me not to tell her how to run her life, but it's affecting my business. My husband told me I should have just let it be and that I picked a fight over nothing. Am I in a hole? User comment, not the a-hole, but you would be if you continue this route, as it is not working. You've tried being civil and communicative, but this is strike 2. I don't know what your profession is, I don't know what your options are, I don't know anything but the fact that you will not be able to resolve this issue with your neighbor on your own. Maybe a mediator? Maybe read the bylaws of your HOA and find out if she's violating any of those by harassing your guests? I don't know what your legal ground is. But if this is affecting your business, then you have to be business serious about it, not good neighbors serious about it. User comment, not the a-hole, I would reach out to the HOA and see what the rules are about harassment. Also I sure hope your business is allowed under the HOA rules. When I looked for a house I said I would not consider any place that had a HOA, for this exact reason, because if it isn't you are kind of stuck. User comment, not the a-hole, I read a bunch of other comments and my suggestion would be to read the HOA guidelines and find a means of identifying your house outside of a lawn ornament. Find a loophole and exploit it. I mean, a wacky arm flailing inflatable tube man could technically be considered a lawn ornament. Or if you don't want to look like a crazy person, just get the actual HOA bylaws and see what your options are. Next one posted by user throwaway 07146. Titled, AITA for crossing a boundary? Some backstory. Recently, someone I care deeply about got into a drunk driving accident where they were at fault, which, believe me, is a whole big issue all on its own that I've tried to address. I then found out from some other people that they were planning to leave the state in a few weeks for a party with some of their other friends, and that they would need someone to watch their dog. I usually am the one who watches their dog because it's not a big deal to me. Cut to the last few days, this person finally approached me and asked me to watch their dog. I obviously knew what this person was going to do, and I noticed that they conveniently left the part about them leaving the state out of their explanation for why they needed my help. I pressed my friend about it and they were surprisingly pretty honest. I then said that I was not comfortable with them leaving the state for a party, not to mention the fact that after their accident I was worried about them possibly making another bad decision with the other partygoers. I explained that under any normal circumstances I would agree to help, but in this case I felt uncomfortable being an enabler. After I said what I needed to say, my friend got pretty pissed. They told me that I was crossing a boundary by trying to force my way into their decision when I had no right to. Essentially, they told me I was being a nosy witch. After that, we kinda stopped talking, and now that I've had a bit of time to replay the situation in my head, I'm honestly kinda confused as to if I'm the a-hole here. I understand where they're coming from with me stipulating that asking for my help meant that they could not make their own decision, but I also care about this person, and they know that. Shouldn't that count for something? AITA for trying to manipulate their decision, especially after knowing that this person puts themselves in really bad, and often life-endangering, situations. User comment, not the a-hole. You didn't really cross any boundaries. This person asked you to watch their dog while they go and party in another state, and you said, no, sorry, given what happened, I'm not comfortable, I feel I shouldn't encourage such behavior, and that's fine. Your friend can't make you dog sit. If going to a party is that important to them, they can just ask someone else. User comment, not the a-hole. You don't need to watch their dog. User comment, the way you're describing this, you're the a-hole making one bad decision doesn't mean they will make the same one again. You're not the a-hole for not watching the dog, you don't have to do that. You're the a-hole for being moralizing to them. What is the significance of going out of state for a party? I know you said you're being vague, but we're missing some details necessary about this other person and your relationship to them necessary to make an accurate judgment, but as it looks right now, you're the a-hole. Next one posted by user, Shoulder Socks. Titled, AITA for making my boyfriend late for work because I shared too much information with a police officer? This happened 2 nights ago. We are both in our 20s if that matters. I was driving my boyfriend to work at 8:30 p.m, he works nights, and a cop pulled me over because my brake lights weren't lighting up and he said he just wanted to let me know. As you may know, when you get pulled over, cops usually take a few minutes to get out and come over to your window. I am really nervous around authority figures in general, so even when it is low stakes I get super nervous and kinda trembly and awkward, but I can push through it. Anyway, the cop was taking forever to come over and I was getting really freaked because at the time I didn't know what it was about and I was nervous. I was in real trouble. My boyfriend tried to calm me down, but there's only so much calm I can achieve in those situations. So I was worked up. I guess I seemed tweaky because when the cop did come and explain, he was looking at me strange and asked if I had taken any substances that day, and I said I had a beer at 5 p.m. but I am sober. He just paused and said okay and went to his car again for a while. Then I was really freaking out. After a while he came back and said all is okay, said he wrote my license and info down and I will be fined if I don't replace the lights as soon as possible, and that was all. My boyfriend was 10 minutes late for work after this and he is upset. He says if I just shut up and acted normal it wouldn't have taken so long and there was no reason to make the cop think I was drinking if I'm sober, and I was totally sober, and I get the point. I just panicked. I think maybe I was a little stupid but not really in a hole, but he keeps bringing it up and almost seems to think I was causing delays on purpose. On a scale of 1 to a hole, how stupid was I in this situation? User comment, not the a-hole of course. Interactions with cops can be absolutely nerve-wracking, especially these days. I don't blame you for wanting to be as honest as possible. User comment, you're the a-hole, but to yourself, not your boyfriend, and only because you told the cop you had a drink. Never do that. Never admit to anything. I know this will be an unpopular opinion, but I don't care. You need to hear this. The vast majority of DUI arrests start with someone saying, I only had 1 beer a couple of hours ago. In my jurisdiction, the cop would have asked you to take an SFST. Regardless of whether you refused or took it, you would have likely been arrested and taken to the police station for a breathalyzer. You wouldn't have been charged, but like cops say, you can beat the rap, but not the ride. User comment, not the a-hole. Your boyfriend can easily explain being pulled over as a reason for being late, which you could probably document if his boss makes a stink, but it's not unreasonable to be nervous when pulled over and you have nothing to apologize for. Next one posted by user, Happy Times 315. Titled, AITA for disrespecting my boyfriend's property? My 23 female boyfriend 24 male purchased a nice car in June, and he's quite protective of it. I am visiting him this month across the country. We are in a long-distance relationship, and I planned a ski trip for this week. I flew my skis in their traveling case, and when I met him at the airport he refused to put the skis in the back of his car. They will fit in his trunk with one of the back seats down. Instead, he tied them to his roof rack. I was a little confused at why he felt so strongly about this. To me it seemed a no-brainer to put them in the back, since no one was driving with us and it took way longer to tie them to the top. Plus, I just feel they are safer on the inside of the car. But he insisted. This week, my boyfriend drove me and my skis to meet my friend, who was taking me to the mountains for the ski trip. I had taken my skis out of their case, since I don't lug the case around unless I'm flying with them. Because they weren't in the case, I wasn't comfortable with him tying them to the top of the car. It was only a 20-minute drive, so I asked him to put them in the back of his car. He got really angry about this request, demanding that I bring the case so they can go on the top of the car, and then telling me that I am being disrespectful of the fact that it is his car. In the end I got my way, but he was angry the whole drive and we fought for at least 20 minutes afterwards about it. My boyfriend thinks I'm the a-hole, claiming my demand indicates a lack of respect for him and his property. I think it's just a straightforward, practical request, and I don't see why it needed to be such a big deal. My skis were clean, and he couldn't give me any reason not to put them in the back other than because he said so and it is his car. Would appreciate your feedback. My boyfriend is coming to the mountains this weekend and so I know the issue will come up again. User comment, you're the a-hole. It's his new car, probably his first big purchase in life. If he doesn't want them in his car, that's his choice. He had every right to be particular about his new property. He had a roof rack so the skis were safe. You should have respected his property. User comment, I mean depending on how the skis can be put inside the car, it can scratch up the interior. I understand your boyfriend, it's a brand new, nice car, and he might not want to take any risk. Not sure why you needed to insist on getting your way and now wondering on top of that how to invalidate your boyfriend's feelings further. Just apologize. You're the a-hole. User comment, while not the a-hole, I can understand why he didn't want to put the skis in the car if you didn't have a moving blanket or anything to put underneath them. People can be real finicky with their cars and not wanting to scratch them up. I do think that since it is his car and he paid for it, you should respect his choice. Next one posted by user, Holo Live is my religion. Titled, WIBTA if I stop helping my dad with technology? I'm 21 female. We all know that due to COVID almost everyone had to shift to work from home. My dad, 65, was one of those who had to shift and due his age, he has had problems with technology and I was willing to help, creating accounts and sending emails. I've been teaching him the ropes and whatnot but again he's having a hard time. This is fine but he tends to yell a lot when he doesn't get what he wants which triggers my anxiety and depression. But since I need to help him, I end up just sucking it in most of the time. A while ago, he missed something from work because his work for some reason uses 2 meeting apps and jumping from one app to another is a challenge for him. He didn't explicitly blame me for what he missed but when you read the lines it felt like he was blaming me for it because I wasn't fast enough. My reason being is that I actually have exams this week and I'm trying to either study or finish requirements. My brother, 25, came out of his room and told us to pipe down and what happened wouldn't be an issue if I lend my father my phone which I use for my online classes. I got irritated and my mum, 54, saw me. She told me to stop being hot-headed because I won't solve anything with that. I'm not going to lie, what they both told me hurt on top of what my father was yelling about. Anyway, long story short, I went back to my room and sent a message to my mum and told her I'm done helping my dad if they keep this up. But she replied that I should be more considerable due to my dad's age and what I'm planning to do is such an a-hole move. WIBTA? Edit, I've been teaching my dad how to use electronics ever since the start of the pandemic which was March in my country and I've been helping him till now. User comment, not the a-hole. My dad is about 65 or so. He's perfectly capable of using technology and learning how to use new devices or gadgets. Your dad's problem isn't his age, that's an excuse. He's refusing to adapt and learn, and as an added bonus is abusing the person trying to help. If your mother and brother think his behavior is fine, they can help him. User comment, not the a-hole. If you do continue helping your father it should only be after he has apologized for his behavior and b promised it will stop. I have sympathy for your father's situation, it must be humiliating to be in that position in front of new colleagues but that's no excuse for taking it out on you. User comment, probably not the a-hole. You just need a break. Helping your parents with technology can be frustrating. I know it from my own experience. I help my parents, they are in their 60s, my whole life with stuff like scanning, printing, emails. And I often get really anxious and irritated because they themselves are often really pressing me to do it quickly, but don't even know where on the desktop is the internet. I still do it, but it is definitely not my favorite activity. Also, you have a brother and mum. They can probably help your dad as well. It should not be all your responsibility. Last one posted by user, MemLoverGL. Titled, AITA for wanting to avoid my grandma's church who I became a huge part of because of a creepy guy. This happened less than a year ago. I am a young teen and my parents went to a Christmas party for my dad's job. Since they weren't getting home till very late and they didn't want to wake us up in the middle of the night, they decided that I would just stay at my grandma's house and we would meet at her church the next morning. The night went great, and I have fun at my grandma's. My grandma is widowed since before my older brother was born. The next day at church, it was my first day there in a long time, and everyone praised me for how big I gotten. Everyone just said it once. Then I went to talk to other people of the small church. Then I walked by this guy, let's call him CD, creepy dude. He is old enough to be my grandma or close. He went on about how I grew like everyone else. He even talked about my twitching. When I am uncomfortable, usually with an article of clothing, I twitch. I haven't done that in so long, but started doing it again after this. I went to my seat because service was about to start, and he said, I will pay you $5 to sit by me. Try to remember the first time I met this guy. He hugged me in a way that made my mum tell me to avoid him. I was like 9, 10, 11 years old. Then when my dad walked in, he didn't want to be close to my dad. My dad wanted to elbow him, but this guy said he didn't want the virus. When service started, we were about to pray for blessing that we had, and this guy said, look who just walked in, referring to my parents and I. My brother was at a friend's house. This freaked me out till lunch the next day and after school when I had a sports game, and my mum asked me about it because I told my brother that morning. After that, she talked to my dad. I could hear my dad call the pastor's wife after dinner. Turns out that he asked my parents to babysit me next time they leave town. I was already freaked out because he already was near so many people who knew where I lived or could find it. A week or so ago, a person from that church died. She was close to everyone and I loved her. We will call her RNL, really nice lady. I didn't want to go to the service that was about her because I wasn't ready. My parents made me go anyway. The main reason I didn't want to go was because of CD, and my parents told me that if he is there, avoid him like the plague. I was so relieved when he wasn't there. We had a great service. I cried a bit, which is hard to get me to do, but it's been getting easier too. But after what happened, this place that felt like home that I never wanted to leave became a place where I've dreaded because this is the only place I see CD. I was reminded of him after an unrelated nightmare and I didn't know where to put this. So aita for avoiding my grandma's church because of a creepy dude. User comment, you're absolutely not the a-hole. There's honestly no reason to think you might be. If an older dude gives you bad vibes and hugs you in ways that seem inappropriate and tries to pay you to sit by him, there's something wrong and you are well within your rights to do everything you can to avoid him. User comment, not the a-hole. If it makes you feel better, creepy dudes like that usually want to avoid all kind of attention and confrontation so they can keep being creepy without anyone stopping them. He probably thinks you're easy target, or he thinks you won't tell anyone because you're young and it's embarrassing or something. So if you happen to see him again, make sure to make yourself noticed if he approaches with another creepy request. He asks to pay for you for sitting with him. Repeat the request with a loud voice. What was that? You want to pay me for sitting next to you? Sorry, but I'd rather sit with my family. I'm 100% sure the other adults within earshot will intervene if he tries anything. User comment, not the a-hole. I hope more, including the pastor, know about this. It's the duty of the pastor to protect his flock. He needs to know he's falling down on the job. Thanks for listening.